that the idea of serving a fish cutlet instead of regular fish is because of the concern of borer.
Oh, bones, yeah.
It's because of the concern of borer. Borer is that the prohibited slay. You can't pull things out of your food on Shabbos that you don't want to eat. So one of the foods that presents a challenge is fish, because fish has bones in them. Now, there are different opinions in Halacha of how to eat fish, because there are different, the preferable way is to take a bite of fish and pull the bones out of your mouth. If that's not good enough for you, so you pull it away. If that's too difficult, so you can pull the bones out if it's an immediate eating. But it's not, it could easily turn into borer. I'm not getting into there are different ranges of halacha. But if you are of the opinion that you can't pull it, the only way to eat it is, so to get around the problem of borer, which is a problem with fish more than other foods because of the bones, so the tradition became to make this fish patty so that there's no borer, because you could eat it, it's all, what do you call it? You just eat it with no bones in it. It's fish with no bones. There's a mitzvah to eat fish on Shabbos, or I don't know if it's a mitzvah, it's a very strong minhag to eat fish on Shabbos. One of the reasons, because dag, the word dag is, do me a favor, I can't have any, and no help. Don't help me when I give the shiur, because I actually get paid for this. The word dag is the numerical value of 7, which is the gematria. Shabbos is the 7th day. Plus, fish don't have eyelids. You ever notice that? Fish never wink at each other. Fish don't have eyelids, and they're symbolically that the same way that their eyes never close, that Hashem's supervision of us never stops. That's sort of and probably because people like fish. Right, so that's called oneg Shabbos. There were times in the Gemara where fish was more expensive than meat. And there are certain people in the world, they prefer fish to meat, whatever the case may be. So there is and it's brought down in Sfarim that there's actually a minhag bordering on mitzvah to eat fish at every meal on Shabbos. That even at Shal Shudas people eat fish. Now, having said that, Shabbos is for oneg. Oneg means delight. And remember, we've mentioned in the past the difference between Shabbos and Yontif. Yontif is simcha. Yontif is to make, you have to samachta b'chagecha. That's why there's specifically a mitzvah to eat beef on Yontif, to eat actual beef. Because the Gemara says, Ein simcha ela b'basar v'yayin. Simcha is with meat and wine. So and as I tell people, even if you're not a meat guy, if you don't like meat, or meat isn't your favorite, you should try to eat a kazayas of meat on Yontif. On Shabbos is for oneg, not for simcha. Oneg means delight. And therefore, if you like it on Shabbos, you eat it. If you don't like it, you don't have to eat. There are people, I used to, I'll take a bite of gefilte fish if it's not too bad. So just for the mitzvah of eating fish on Shabbos, just eat fish on Shabbos. But if you really don't like it, and if you don't like meat, you don't have to eat it. I know a guy who doesn't eat any fleishiks on Shabbos. They just don't enjoy fleishiks. They don't enjoy fleishiks, so they don't eat fleishiks on Shabbos. Shabbos is for enjoyment. Yontif is for simcha. So most people, they're simcha, in simcha la basar v'yayin. So you have meat and wine on Yontif. So the minhag of the gefilte fish, which is to grind it up, and so that you don't have any of the bones. I mean, I also think, it also used to be the sort of thing, because people put filler into it. If there are people who are on a budget, you could serve your family on what do you call it. But having said all that, I'll pass. Now, there are a lot of people, we have salmon on Shabbos. There are a lot of people who have salmon, which is fine. That I could definitely deal with, right? Especially if it's filleted salmon, so you haven't got the problem with the bones. So that we could live with. But the gefilte, the standard gefilte fish that you think of, what do you call it? It's one of those things that either you love it, or you'll pass on it. We would pass on it. So what do you call it? Hence the meatballs, right? As the appetizer. Yeah, that was the definitely more popular selection. That's the mitzvah. Now, Miguel had actually asked. Remember, you asked me last week why last week's Parsha Vayera started with the Arba. It started with the last. You have the Makos were broken up into what do you call it? Bo. Vayera had 7 plagues in it, and Bo had 3 plagues in it. Right? That's what and you would ask me why it was broken up there. So I actually looked around. I saw that one of the commentaries say, you see, the last 3 plagues all involve darkness. When the locusts came, the locusts it caused, they're blocking the light. There's tremendous darkness. The makkah of darkness is darkness. The choshech is darkness. And then you have makas bechoros, and there's a pasuk in Megillas Eicha, which we read on Tisha B'Av. It says, B'machashakim hoshivani kemesei olam. Hashem put me in the darkness like the dead. Right, so there's a connection between makas bechoros, the dying, and darkness. And therefore the commentators said that all 3 have darkness in common, and therefore those are divided up in 3. That's one of the explanations. Okay? So now the Torah ends with Parshas Bo. The Torah ends with Parshas Bo, and you have the plague of the firstborn, and the Jewish people leave Egypt. Now you got over here, we start with Parshas Beshalach on page 366. That's this week's Parsha, Parshas Beshalach. So it says like this, Vayhi Beshalach Paro Esa'am, when Paro sent away the people, Hashem didn't take them by way of the Plishtim because he was worried the people would get spooked by the Plishtim, and they would want to return to Mitzrayim. Now the first question over here is the word Vayehi is an expression of, like Vayehi b'mei Achashverosh, it's an expression of trouble. Vayehi means distress, something negative. What's negative about the fact that Paro sent the people out of Mitzrayim? We should be pretty happy about this. Why is it introduced with the word Vayehi, which is a lashon of tsar? The lashon, the Gemara says Vayehi is a lashon of tsar. Tsar means a lashon of suffering, a lashon of trouble. Why is there trouble that Paro sent the people out of Mitzrayim? What's the tsar over it? Why should it be regarded as tsar? Because they're leaving Egypt after all these years. What are you upset about? Anybody got an idea? What do you say your name is?
Yaakov.
Yaakov, yeah, what do you say?
Maybe because he's been so stubborn up until this point. Now, what has changed his mind? It's troubling to...
We're not troubled that he changed his mind. We're kind of happy that he changed his mind. Why?
Did it.
That he chased them out? We're happy to be chased. We're happy to be a guy. If you chase a guy out of prison who's been in prison for 10 years and you chase him out of prison, he won't have any problem with it. Guy won't have any problem being chased out of prison. So what do you say?
Is it because the Jews were so comfortable in Egypt that leaving was a chore?
You're not far off. That's one of the concerns, that they might want to go back. As soon as they get spooked by the Plishtim, then all of a sudden Jews are very fickle. Like, oh yeah, let's go back to friendly Egypt. One little show of friendship from the Goyim. But here the problem is not that the Jews are going to want to go back. The problem is, who sent you out of Mitzrayim? That after all that you've seen, Vahi Beshalach Paro, that you ascribe it to Paro. This is we suffer from this malady all the time. We still suffer from today. Yeah, who's winning the war in Gaza? The Israeli Air Force. The Air Force. That's always the problem. The problem is that we live in a world of nature, but it's God's hand disguised in nature. We're supposed to be seeing God's hand over here. I think I've mentioned to you, after the Yom Kippur War, there was a run on tefillin in this country. You know that? They couldn't fulfill the order for tefillin in Israel. Because in the Yom Kippur War, people came back from the front and they said, we saw God in the battle, we want tefillin. After 2 weeks, it died down. Why? Because after a while, it happens sometimes that they don't advance even though they could. The Egyptian army could have advanced and they didn't. That happens sometimes. And it happens sometimes that they throw grenades and forget to pull the pin and we can pick it up, pull the pin and throw it back. That happens sometimes, And it happens. All the things that people were convinced were the hand of God blatantly each other, and all of a sudden you get a little like, oh, I don't know, So you look at the Israeli Air Force. Ooh, the Air Force. But did you ever stop and think, well, Israel's only been around for since 1948. How come? Did you ever stop and think? So why have they developed the Air Force and the millions of Arabs around there haven't developed it? That's also a miracle, isn't it?
Yes.
Why have they developed it? By the way, it didn't take 70 years. Already in 1967, the country was only around since 48. The country was only around for 19 years. And already they had a better Air Force. There was a preemptive strike. I wonder about that. Why did they have better intelligence? Why I wonder. As always you look at what's happening right now. That's why you Beshalach Paro. That's the Tsar. We're misreading it. It's not Paro. It's not Paro. That's the misread over here. And by the way, there's another misread that we're going through. It's not Hamas. That's a misread. It's not Hamas. People think, oh yeah, we'll destroy Hamas, then everything will be hunky-dory, right? It won't be hunky-dory. Because if it wouldn't be Hamas, it would be something else. There's a message being delivered to us. Exactly what the message is, we don't know, because we need prophets. See, we don't know exactly what the message is, but it's clear that the message is, well, get your act together. Which act? I mean, you got a lot of acts, right? It's like a play with many acts. I don't know. Everybody knows where they need to improve. But the Rebbeinu Shalom speaking to us. It's not Hamas speaking to us. The Rebbeinu Shalom speaking. Hamas is just a vehicle. If it wouldn't be them, it'd be something else. If it wouldn't be that, it'd be something else. The same thing when it comes to Paro. Paro sent them out of Egypt. Well, that's why the Vihi. The Vihi is telling you in life, don't let the real cause become camouflaged by nature. It's not Paro. It's the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the Paro Hashem sends them out. Okay. So then a pasuk it says, "Vayaseves ha'am derech hamidbar yamsuf, v'chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim." The Jewish people, the word chamushim, I think in the article translates they left armed. How does he translate it? How does he translate chamushim in the Art Scroll? Armed? Yeah, the Jewish people were armed when they came. They armed, or they had their supplies with them, and so on and so forth. Now here, the Gemara makes a remarkable statement. The Gemara says that vachamushim means that 1/5 of the Jewish people left Egypt. That means 4/5 of the Jewish people, it says, died during the plague of darkness. They didn't want to leave. According to some of the commentaries, what did they do wrong? Well, and during the plague of darkness, what happened? The Egyptians, the first 3 days couldn't see. The second 3 days, the darkness was so thick they couldn't move. They couldn't move. They were frozen in place. So what did the Jewish people do? They went into the houses and they went looking through the Egyptian possessions. And then when they left Egypt, they came to the Egyptians. Each one came. They said, "Say hi, bro, right? Maybe we could have that diamond-studded. What do you call it? We used to call it bling. What do they call it now? Bling. No, there's something. There's bling. There's bling wing. Now they tell. There's another expression they use now. Ice, yeah, right. You got ice. Now it's ice, right? Well, ice used to refer to drugs, ice. Nowadays you can't say anything. Everything. Can I have an ice cube? You're what do you call it? What ice? It's called ice, right? Now it's called ice. Bling ice or just ice? Ice. Ice. Huh? Iced out or hot ice. Hot ice means that the diamonds were stolen. Right, that's what you can't. I'm telling you, it got to the point. I remember I was in Shear. I was talking about Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor was a football player. So I mentioned Lawrence Taylor. So one of the guys in Shear goes, "Oh, he's sick." I said, "I thought he was good." Yeah, I said, "It's good." He goes, "Yeah, I said that." So I said, "He said he's sick." Right? Sick means good. Right? Bad means good. Bad means he's bad. He's bad. Right? Bad means good. And if you're mad bad, that means you're very good. He's mad bad. He's very good. That's how you need a translator now. You got to go to an ulpan. You got an ulpan, a eubonics ulpan, in order to understand things. Oh, he's mad bad. Right? That means he's good. That means he's great. And he's wonderful. He's a tzaddik. Okay? We don't describe tzaddikim as mad bad. He's mad bad. He's a tzaddik. He's one of the 36. He's mad bad. Right? That's what's happened. So you walk into the Jew walks into the Egyptian. And he says to him, "Hey, Anwar, I like that gold-studded necklace you got, the diamond-studded necklace you got." "Oh, I don't have one, man." Yeah, second drawer to the right, right under the towels. Right? How did he know? Because the Jews went looking through and didn't take anything. The Jews didn't take anything. Says the commentaries. And imagine what it's like being an Egyptian. Imagine being an Egyptian in darkness and you hear footsteps in the house. And all you hear, who's there? I don't know if they could even talk, and all you hear is people tiptoeing around your house, drawers opening and closing, and people talking in Yiddish. A feivel. This is a shena zach. And you're sitting there. What are you saying? What's going on over there? And then when they leave Egypt, the feivel comes over and says, "Hey, Anwar, I saw some ice in your drawer. Some bling bling. And Anwar, how do you know?" And so there are Mepharshim that say the Jews that did not withstand that temptation, that actually took, so those were the Jews that died. Okay. Different opinions. There are other opinions that say the standard opinion is they were Jews who didn't want to leave Mitzrayim. And one of the reasons they don't want to leave, what was again your first name? Eliyahu. Eliyahu said, Eliyahu Lev?
Yeah.
That's all the first name? Eliyahu Lev.
Yeah.
That's all one name.
Yeah.
Phew, that's a nice name. So, I never heard that name. It's a beautiful name. Eliyahu Lev, the heart of Elijah. Yeah, beautiful. So Eliyahu says they didn't want to leave Egypt. Which is true. That's what the Mepharshim say. The basic shot is they didn't want to leave Egypt because they were comfortable in Egypt. So 4/5 of them died. Now, if you stop and think about it, I had a problem here because there were 600,000 males between the ages of 20 and 60 who left. The calculation is generally that if you can include if you include men, women, and children, so it comes out to about 2.5 billion people. Okay, so let's say only the men between 60, so let's say we're talking about the 600,000. If only 1/5 left, that means 2,400,000 died. Why did they die during darkness? Because I'll say so that the Egyptians should notice that if 2,400,000 people disappear from your population, all of a sudden there's a parking space at Walmart where there never used to be, and there's room on the bus and on the train, nobody. You're going to notice for number one, number two, practically how do you bury them? How long it takes to bury one body? Bury 2,400,000. So it's okay. So you could always rely on it was a miracle, and it could always fall back. It was a nace, right? Which from kids rely on all the time, right? Hey. Did somebody take a chocolate bar without permission? How did this chocolate bar disappear? And your 7-year-old looks at it was a nace. Yeah, they all know. They learned a word. It was a nace. My oldest son was about 4 years old, and I said to him, he did something. I said, "Do you want a potch?" He looked at me and goes, "You can't potch me." I said, "Well, why not?" He goes, "Hashem doesn't let." He got frum on me all of a sudden. Yeah. So Hashem, all of a sudden Hashem, yeah. And Hashem doesn't want you to make your bed either, huh? He doesn't want you to pick up your toys either. Hashem doesn't want, no, all of a sudden Hashem's involved. So the what do you call it? The you could always rely on that. But I saw a phenomenal explanation. When it says that 2,400,000 people died, it doesn't literally mean that those people died. When Cain killed Hevel, turn back for a second to Parshas Bereshis. Take a look at page 20. So you got this, the first fight in history. Two brothers, sibling rivalry. This puts all the psychologists to rest, right? Yes, there is sibling rivalry, and it ended up in the first killing in history. So Hashem says after Cain kills Hevel, if you look about 10 lines from the bottom, Pasuk Yud. So Hashem says to Cain, Vayomer me'asisa, what'd you do? Kol demei achicha tzoakim elai min ha'adam. The bloods of your brother are yelling to me from the earth. Demei is plural. Kol, the sound, demei achicha. Doesn't say kol, the sound of dam achicha, which is how it should say. It should say the blood of your brother. It says, Kol demei achicha, the bloods of your brother cry to me from the earth. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, why is it plural? Says the Gemara, Damo, the Mishnah, it's actually a Mishnah in Sanhedrin, it says, Damo v'dam zari Yosef, his blood and the bloods of his future descendants. That means that Cain kills Hevel, he's not just responsible for Hevel. He's responsible for anything that would have been produced by Hevel throughout all future eternal generations. That means that, that's bad. That means that when you do something, if you do something, remember, always remember that whatever rate of negative there is in Torah, the positive is paid at a much higher rate. A punishment for an Avera, the reward is at a rate of 500 times. That means if you miss work for an hour, you lose your $10 an hour. If you work for that hour, you get 10 times 500. What is it? $5,000 an hour. You're paid $5,000. Yeah. In other words, what's your salary? Your salary is $10 an hour. What does that mean? If you miss work, you miss an hour of work, you're docked $10. But if you work the hour, you get $5,000. Because the payment for the good, that's how God calculates the rate. That's a chesed that Hashem does with us. So if you're accountable for all that could have been, so when you actually are a cause for something good that could be, so then that goes on your credit. So if you influence somebody to do a mitzvah or you keep somebody alive. I had a roommate here in the yeshiva when I was studying at Ohr Somayach. I had a roommate, his sister was actually a member of the Knesset. Maybe you heard of Limor Livnat. You ever heard of Limor Livnat? She was a member of the Israeli Knesset. This guy was my roommate, her brother was my roommate here at Ohr Somayach. When I came in, he was an Israeli guy. And I walked into the room, I met this guy. He was, he did not have the use of his one side of his body, his arm and his leg. What had happened was he was in the Israeli army, and he was sitting in a truck, and the truck hit the brakes, and a crate of crate of bottles went flying, and it hit him right in the back of the neck, and it damaged his spinal cord. So he was in the hospital, and at a certain point, the doctor said to the parents, "There's no hope. They're going to pull the plug. They should pull the plug." The doctor said, the father said, they weren't a religious family, and the father said to them, "Don't you dare." And the doctor said, "There's no hope. He's not going to recover. He's going to die, so he may as well pull the plug now." He did recover. He's married, has 6 kids. What do you call it? Now, imagine if that doctor would have pulled the plug. So now he's responsible for everything that future generations over there. That's what the Torah is telling you. Kol dmei achicha. And it works in the positive as well. So the positive, if the Torah is teaching you over here that who died in Mitzrayim? I don't know how many people literally died. But those people who died during the darkness in Mitzrayim, so 4/5 of the Jewish people died. What does that mean? That the future generations died. We always talk about nowadays there was a physical Holocaust in Europe. But now we're going through a spiritual Holocaust in America because anybody who intermarries, he cuts off the line of the Jewish people, what would have been if he would have married Jewish. You understand? And so on and so forth. There's an interesting story. There was Moshe Feinstein. There was a guy walked into there are different versions of the story. The version I heard was the guy goes to a doctor, frum guy goes to a doctor, and the doctor says to him that he's got a terminal illness, and he said he's got 2 choices. He could either let the disease run its course, and he'll die relatively painlessly within about 6 months. Or he could undergo a grueling course of treatment, which will keep him alive for another 3-4 years. So the guy said, "Which one do you want to do?" So he says to the doctor, "I don't know." It's a Jewish doctor. It's a doctor, "I don't know. I have to speak to my rabbi." So he went to Rabbi Feinstein, that's all. And he asked Rabbi what he should do. So Rabbi said, "Let's make a calculation. You'll stay alive for another 3-4 years. Let's calculate how many pages of Gemara will you be able to learn? How many times will you answer Amen Yehi Shmei Rabbah? How many times will you put on tefillin? How many times will you make Kiddush on Shabbos?" He says it's a davar pashut. It's obvious that you got to try to keep yourself alive. The guy says, okay, he goes back to the doctor. Says, "The doctor, I spoke to my rabbi. My rabbi said I should go through the course of treatment." The doctor says, "Okay, come back in 4 weeks. You have to set up the chemicals, the course of treatment, everything. They'll come back in 4 weeks. We'll start the treatment." Guy comes to the hospital 4 weeks later. He's looking for Dr. Taub. Goes and knocks on the door. Come in. He walks in. Dr. Taub's not there. There's a guy sitting behind the desk. He's got tzitzis. He's got a big black yarmulke and a little beard. And he looks at it. He says, "Sorry, I'm looking for Dr. Taub." He starts walking out. He says, "It's me." He turns around, does a double take, and sure enough, it says Dr. Taub. 4 weeks earlier was completely second. He's looking, he's got a yarmulke. He says, "What's going on?" He says, I want to tell you something. I've been a cancer specialist for many years. In all the years that I've been a doctor, you're the first patient that I've had who's chosen to go through the difficult pain treatment. I went to speak to your Rabbi Moshe Feinstein to find out why you're doing this. And he explained to me what it is to be a Torah Jew, and therefore myself and my entire family would become Baal Tshuvas. It's a documented story. Now I want to ask you a question. Even Rabbi Moshe Feinstein with his Ruach HaKodesh, when Rabbi Moshe made a calculation of all the benefits that this guy is going to have based on this mitzvah, did he take into account the fact that now this frum Jew is going to get the credit for this Dr. Taub and his family and all the mitzvahs that they do for eternity? That's what it means. That's what it means, that kol d'mei achecha. The blood, you're responsible for the blood for eternity. Then you get the credit for the good for eternity. So if you have an influence, by the way, go easy on your families. Don't run home now and try to pound your families into religious observance, because then you're going to end up with kol d'mei achecha, right? So don't go, just go easy. You know, that's how to influence is a completely different story. The point is that for that sort of thing, I'll tell you another. This is a true story. A guy, true means it's true that I heard it. I either heard it or read it. No, this is true. Rabbi Pesach Krohn. You've heard of Rabbi Krohn, right? The Maggid, Rabbi Krohn. Okay, so he has the following story. There's a guy knocks on the. It comes to a rabbi. There's a rabbi who's got a shul in Dallas, Texas. One day, a guy walks into the shul, secular Jew, comes into the. He says, "Rabbi, could I speak to you?" Listen, I'm very busy right now. He says, "I'd like to make a major donation to your shul." So, I'm not that busy. Come on in, you know. So, yeah, just kidding. That part I made up. You know the story. Parenthetical. Yeah, you know the story. Guy comes to the rabbi. He says, "Rabbi, I want to make a bar mitzvah for my dog." So the rabbi looks at him and says, "We don't make bar mitzvahs for dog. Here, maybe go to the Reform Temple down the road." So he says, "Rabbi, I just want you to know there's a $50,000 donation to whichever synagogue does the bar mitzvah." He goes, "Well, why didn't you tell me the dog is Jewish?" It's a joke. So what do you call it? So this guy comes to the rabbi and he sits down. He says he walks into the rabbi. He says, "Rabbi, I want to give a donation. You sure?" He writes him out a check for $12,000. So the Rav says to him, it's very interesting. We just had a meeting in our shul last week. Our community is growing. We had a meeting in our shul. We wanted to build a school because the community is growing. We want an education center for our children. But the startup costs are beyond us. And so we scrapped the project for the time being. Your $12,000 will get us started. And once you get started, then it's easier to solicit donations because people see something's happening and then you build the show, the school, whatever it is. So I only have one question. Why would you come in here sight unseen and give me $12,000? Never met you before in my life. The guy says, "Listen, I'm a completely secular, unaffiliated Jew. Last month, I was in Israel for the first and only time in my life. I was on a tour. We went to many spiritual places in Israel. We were in Eilat, Netanya, Tel Aviv, right? And on the last day of the tour, we went to the Western Wall. I got to the Western Wall, and I saw there was this Yerushalmer Jew with a shtreimel in his shtreimel, and he was davening. He said, "Rabbi, I've never seen anybody pray with this kind of devotion in my life." I was mesmerized. I was enchanted. I couldn't get my eyes off this guy. I decided that I'm going to make it, when I get back to America, on the plane on the way home, the next day, I could not get out of my mind's eye this Yerushalmer Jew who was davening. I decided I'm going to make a donation to an Orthodox shul in honor of this Yerushalmer Jew. I came home, opened up the yellow pages, found your synagogue. That's how I used to look things up, gentlemen. Used to look up, it's called the Yellow Pages. I know you probably never heard of that. You think Yellow Pages are the old books you have on your shelf, right? The Yellow Pages was actually, he said, I opened up the Yellow Pages, found a shul, and here I am, here's $12,000. So in honor of that Jew. Okay, that's the end of the story. Now imagine that Jew, the Yerushalmer Jew, after 120 years, he comes up to the heavenly court. And they say, okay, it's your judgment day, and they open up the ledger. And they say, here's your reward for Torah study, here's your reward for chesed, here's your reward for davening, here's your reward for tzedakah. And in a certain point, the Yerushalmer Jew, he says, excuse me 1 second. Thank you very much for your generosity. I mean, you got me down there for a lot more Torah than I actually learned. I mean, I did learn. I did my learning. But, I had my chavrusa and a daf yomi. But you got me down there for a lot more than I actually. I said, we know. But you're also being rewarded for the Torah that was studied by hundreds of children in a shul in Dallas, Texas. In a school in Dallas, Texas that was built because of you. And Shalmer Jews, it's like, where is Dallas? It's in Texas. Where is Texas? So, the guy, now, he was davening at the Kaisel. Why? A school was building it. Somebody saw you davening. They were inspired by your davening to go and donate money, and that started school. Therefore, you get the reward. You share in the reward. You imagine such a thing? You imagine such a thing? What do you think he was davening for? I'll give you a hint. He had 11 daughters, right? What do you think he was davening for? I got a few suggestions, right? Whatever it is, I have no idea what he was davening for. The last thing he was davening for was a school in Dallas, Texas. And now he shares in the reward of everything because somebody was inspired by him completely unintentionally. That's how Kodesh Baruch Hu works. So that's part one. That was Ad Kan HaKofa Aleph. That was Rabbi Pesach Kron's story, the second part of the story. In our neighborhood, so we have a tzedakah fund, the charity fund. So one Shabbos, I spoke in a shul. We had a fundraiser for the tzedakah. So I spoke in one of the shuls. Our neighborhood is half and half. It's half American, half Israeli, right? And what do you call it? It's about 50-50, whatever. I spoke in one of the shuls, and I told them this story. And I told them this story, and that the point is that when you give tzedakah, let's say you give tzedakah to somebody. Now, if because you gave them money, you give them $50. So you thought, okay, I did my mitzvah, I gave $50. But if the kids in the house eat a better breakfast that morning because of your money, and then they go to cheder and they learn Torah better in cheder because they had a better breakfast, you now share in their Torah learning. You have a share in their Torah learning. If the couple gets along better, the shalom bayis is better because you relieve their financial pressure, you now share in that also. So I told this story to show that when you give money, it's not just the giving the money, it's all the effects. So one of the other members of the tzedakah, he heard me tell the story. So he told it in another shul. He said the story in another shul in the neighborhood. After he told the story, a guy, an avrech from Kol guy, comes walking over with two little kids. He says, I just want to tell you something. I heard the story that you told. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I was educated in that school. This is the next generation. Right? That's what it means that there's an effect. Right? There's a tangible effect of what you're doing. So over here, 500. How many people died? I don't know. Maybe 100,000 people died. 2,400,000 people died. That's the calculation of the future generations. That's the calculation. That's how it works. Okay. Let me ask you. I have to tell you, if we're on the subject, let me ask you the following. I'll give you throw you a good challenge here. Imagine the following. A guy knocks on the door of a hardworking middle-class Jew. He's paying tuitions, and he's a hardworking accountant. Got 8 children. Guy knocks on his door. He says, listen, my father is deathly ill. We need emergency surgery, $50,000. Can you help me out? The guy says, listen, it's a lot of money. Give me a week. Let me see what I can do. He runs around for an entire week. He barely sleeps. Goes to his father-in-law, brother-in-law, $18 here, $36 over here. Runs around for an entire week. At the end of the week, he puts together $50,000. The guy comes back a week later. He says, can you help me? I says, Baruch Hashem, Hayitziyata D'Shmaya. Here's $50,000 cash. $50,000 cash. Guy bursts into tears. He says, thank you. How can I thank you? How can I repay you? He says, don't repay me. Your father should be well. That's the most important thing. The guy says, thank you. I'm never going to forget. He gives him a bear hug, a tearful bear hug. And the guy leaves, goes out to the street, flags down a cab, goes out to the airport, flies out to Las Vegas, and he gambles all the money away. There's no father, there's no surgery. The entire story is a fabrication. Eliyahu Levitt's a story. I got nervous over there. Right? It's a story. Okay? Scenario number 1. Guy rips him off, and he goes off and gambles the money away. Scenario number 2. The guy knocks on the door of the wealthiest frum Jew in the world. Says to him, Kaplan, my father is, well, you never know, a little subliminal suggestion. Kaplan, my father is deathly ill, need $50,000. Kaplan says to him, go speak to my secretary's secretary. So he goes to the secretary knocks on the door before he can say where. He says, how much do you need? He says, $50,000. She writes him out a check, pays the surgeon, the father had surgery, and he's cured. Question, gentlemen. Who gets greater reward? The Jew in scenario number 1, who ran around making every effort, he barely slept. L'fum tzara agra, the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, the reward is commensurate with the effort that you put in. But he was deceived by a professional con man. Or Kaplan in scenario number 2 and never even picked up the pen to write out the check, but it was his money that paid for the surgery and the father was cured. Who gets greater worth, number 1 or number 2? How many of you think number 1? How many of you think number 2? How many of you don't think? There you go. How many of you think number 1? Haven't you guys learned anything in all the years, in all the time you've been here, haven't you learned that if a rabbi is asking you a question, it's got to be a trick? You haven't learned that yet? That's olive base. What, would I ask you a straightforward question? How many of you think number 2? Haven't you learned anything since you've been here? What's the answer? Answer is it there. Teku. There you go, Teku. And when all else fails, Teku. It's a nace. Yeah, when all else fails, yeah, it's a nace. Hashem. Yeah. The answer is there are 2 different types of reward. There's a reward for your effort, which the guy number 1 gets. There's a reward for your effects, regardless of what you invested. There's a reward for the effects that you bring about. Why did he have the opportunity to bring about effects? That for whatever reason it is that he might have done other things. So what happened to that father? That father had surgery and he survived. He was cured. And because he was cured, let's see what happened to this man. He decided, look, Hashem gave me an lease on life. I think I'm going to devote the rest of my life to Hashem. So he goes and he opens up a yeshiva. And now there are 300 boys learning in his yeshiva. And every word of Torah that they learn is a mitzvah. Every single word that 300 boys learn is a mitzvah. Every single word you learn Torah is a mitzvah. So every single word they're learning is a mitzvah. Who shares in the reward for the Torah that's learned in that yeshiva? That Kaplan who never even picked up the pen to write out a check. And then one of the boys becomes a superstar learner. And he marries the daughter of a big Rosh Yeshiva. And a year later, they have a baby. And the baby turns out to be Mashiach. Yeah, why not? We're there, let's bring him. Right? So who shares in the schar of having brought me? That Kaplan never picked up the pen to write out a check. Right? That's what it means. That means the effect, the ripple effect. And it's an endless ripple effect. Whatever you do, you left an effect in the world. That's what died in 4 and 3. And that's what's dying today. Every time a Jew intermarries, so generations are being killed off. That's the idea. Okay? Now, yeah, go ahead.
So the person that intermarries is getting punished even more so, like perpetually?
Damo v'dam zari Yosef. We don't know exactly how it works, but it ain't good. There's certain, it's problematic. Once you get it, could be there's a Gilgul or this, that, the other, but you're killing people off. It's a problem. It's a problem. Killing people off is a problem. It's a bad habit to kill people off. Yeah, and bad mitos. Yeah, definitely bad mitos. Okay. Take a look at, where are we here now? Okay. Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo. Moshe took Yosef's bones, pasuk yud tes. Ki hashbeah hishbeah es bnei Yisrael lemor. Yosef invoked an oath on the Jewish people. Lemor, pokod yifkod Eloki beschem. Hashem will redeem you. V'alisem es atzmos emizechem. You'll take my bones. Now, I want to show you something unbelievable. First of all, the word hashbeah hishbeah. What does the word sound like? A shavua sounds like what? What does it sound like? The word shvua sounds like what?
Sheva.
The number sheva, which is what? 7. That means whenever they would make an oath, the severity of the oath is supposed to be a reminder of God. What's the number reminds you of God more than anything else? The number 7, because it's the creation of the world in 7 days. So an oath, there's no accident there. Avram Avinu, when they make the pact, how many sheep does he take when he makes the pact? So he takes 7 sheep. There's always that number 7 keeps appearing wherever you go, because the number 7 is the ultimate reminder of the God of the world, that we live in a world with a 7-day cycle in it. So it says Hashbeah Hishbeah. Now, if you take 7 times, Yosef invoked an oath. Why does the Torah use a double terminology? So normally, when you use a double terminology, it's an emphasis. Like when the Torah says, "Mos you must," means what? He shall surely be put to death. Right? You kill him to death. Right? Most you must. Right? So whenever it says is it the Hashbeah Hishbeah, he invoked an oath. How's the ArtScroll translate it? They're probably going to have trouble, because in English that type of expression doesn't. He swearified them. It doesn't have a what do you call it? A translation. How does he translate it? He firmly adjured. Yeah, shkayach. Yeah, hashbeah. I don't know what adjured means either. Right? So hashbeah hishbeah. But if the word hashbeah is from the root of 7, and you multiply it by 7, hashbeah hishbeah, what do you get? 49. That means, what was Yosef saying? When you get to the 49th level of impurity, that's when you're going to be leaving Egypt. Ki hashbeah hishbeah, Yosef was indicating when they're going to leave. Now, I'll leave you with a question. Why did Moshe take Yosef's bones? Why did Moshe take Yosef's bones? What does it say in the pasuk? Ki hashbeah hishbeah, because Yosef invoked an oath. Now, if Yosef...
Buried in Israel, yeah?
What?
You want to be buried in Israel?
He wanted to be. He said Yosef made them swear that they take his bones out, so he'd be buried in Israel.
Jured means to promise under oath.
Yeah, right. Right. He promised under oath. I adjured. Right. I adjured. Right. We learned a word. So what do you call Yosef? Yosef what? But it sounds like, what if Yosef wouldn't invoke the? You know what I mean? Moshe Rabbeinu only did it because Yosef made him swear. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. It almost takes away the credit from Moshe Rabbeinu. Well, listen, he made me swear, so I may as well do it. I got to do it. Well, Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't have done it otherwise. So the plain meaning is Yosef made him swear. Okay, so he made us swear. We got to go. We got to do it. But the Medrash says that Yosef had to go find Moshe Rabbeinu had to go find Yosef's coffin. In the Egyptians, there are 2 opinions. There's one opinion that they buried his coffins in what we call nowadays the tomb. They say the Medrash said the tombs of the kings. What we call nowadays the pyramids. Right? That's why the pyramids were the tombs of the kings, right? Or wherever it was they buried. There's another opinion that the Egyptians took his body, put it in a metal, some sort of metal coffin, and they sunk it in the Nile. And when Moshe Rabbeinu was time to leave, so Moshe Rabbeinu went to the Nile and says, Yosef, we got to get out of here. Neither you show up or we don't. And there's one opinion that he asked Serach bas Osher. She was still alive. Serach was the one who informed Yaakov Avinu that Yosef was still alive, right? And therefore Yaakov gave her a bracha, she should live forever. So Moshe Rabbeinu asked her where Yosef's buried. So she told Yosef where. So Yosef Moshe goes to the Nile, and he says, okay, Yosef, we got to go. We got to leave. Either you show up now, because we're going. And then the thing floated to the top. And he took the coffin, and off they went. Now, the question becomes, this is what the Medrash says. So the question becomes, that's why Moshe did it, because he had to? And if Yosef wouldn't have made him swear, so he wouldn't have done it? He wouldn't have made it done it? All right, we'll see tomorrow what the answer is.